Our learning target is I can calculate the discriminant of a quadratic equation and determine how many solutions or roots exist. So what you need to know, the discriminant. The discriminant is the expression that appears under the square root or the radical sign in the quadratic formula. So you can see over here we have this highlighted in green for you. This expression under that square root, that is the discriminant. And this discriminant is unique because it tells you about the nature of the roots of a quadratic equation, given that a, b, and c are all rational numbers. So what specifically does it tell us about the number of solutions? Well, for quadratic equations that are in standard form, so where ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. When you solve your discriminant, if the discriminant answer is positive, then the equation has two real solutions. If the discriminant answer is 0, it has one real solution, and if it's negative, there are no real solutions. So if we want to determine the number of solutions, how are we going to do that using our discriminant? So here's an example of a graph. This graph and this quadratic equation, we can see visually by just looking at the graph that there should be two solutions when we solve this quadratic equation. So let's see if we get that by using the discriminant. So we're just using the expression under the square root, so b squared minus 4ac. Now real quick, looking at this expression, my a, there's nothing in front, which means there's really a 1. My b is 3, and my c is that constant term, that negative 1. And I'm just going to go place those values into my discriminant formula here. So b is 3, so 3 squared, minus 4ac. My a term was 1, and my c term is negative 1. Then we just go ahead and we simplify, so 3 squared is 9, and that second part of that expression there is 4. 9 plus 4 gives me 13. So looking at my little chart up here, 13 is a positive number, meaning I'm going to have two solutions. And even more specifically, if I have a perfect square, and the reason we're looking at the square is, remember, this is the part under the square root. So if I were to take the square root of this, if I were to take the square root of 13, that's going to give me an irrational number, meaning that I'm going to have two positive solutions, but those solutions are going to be irrational. So my answer choice here would be D, two irrational solutions. Now would be a great time for you to pause, try this one, and then come back to check. We're going to do a similar problem. So here's my example. By looking at this graph, I can see here that I'm only going through at one point. So one solution should be 0. So I should be finding 0 for my answer. Again, we want to identify my A, which would be 1, my B, which is negative 4, and my C, which is positive 4. And we're going to plug those values into the discriminant. Make sure you put your value of B, since it's negative, in parentheses, so that when you put that in your calculator, you get the correct answer. Negative 4 all squared is 16, and then the minus 4 times 1 times 4 also gives me 16. So 16 minus 16 is 0, which is one real solution using what we know about the discriminant. If you want some more practice on this topic, you can check out the Learning Target spreadsheet for additional resources, videos, and practice.